glad to have you back. We are on to the next one now. Well, Lagos State Governor Akinwumi Ambode says his administration remains committed to sustaining the tempo of economic growth and infrastructure development in the state.
Yeah, that's why the proposed 2018 budget stands at an estimated 1.046 trillion naira. Now, 699 billion naira will go for capital expenditure, while 347 billion naira will be dedicated to recurrent expenditure.
Now, these figures represent a capital recurrent ratio of 67% to 33%. The budget-tagged budget of progress and development would be used to consolidate on the achievements recorded in infrastructure, education, transportation, traffic management, security, and even the health sector.
Now, Lagos State's proposed budget is the highest in the history of the state. It is also the second highest in the country after Cross River State with the proposed 1.3 trillion naira for 2018. All right, we have in the studio the head researcher of GDL Asset Management Limited, Oluwashino Olubu. It's good to have you join us.
Well,
thanks for having me.
All right. Now, make us understand, because when the governor presented this budget, a lot of people were so happy. Yeah. But does a budget of high figures translate to the people's benefit, translate to the people's prosperity and all of that? Make us understand that basics.
Thank you very much. It is not unusual for you to see excitement when budgets are passed and when we see budget figures because of the nature of our economy. A lot of the activities in the economy revolve around public sector, revolve around government spending because even though we say we have a mixed economy in terms of involvement of both the private sector and the public sector, we all know that majority of the economic activities, they run on the wheels of government spending because of the nature of our economy. So it's not unusual to see excitement in the air when we see budgets. I must be quick to say, however, that big budget figures do not necessarily translate to, if you like, development, because even growth does not translate to development, because ordinarily, if you have 10% growth in an economy, it should be what should bring joy, because if you are growing something by 10% and you have a population of, say, 3%, it stands to reason that if your growth in economy is more than the growth of people, our population, then it should translate to the pockets of people in terms of standard of living. But that's not what we see, because growth has to translate from growth to development. And development talks about the effect of growth. So it's not just about the growth. The 10%, what does it mean? What is the distribution of income? How does it translate to people's welfare? What is the composition of the so-called growth? What is driving the growth? So that's why in economics we say that why growth means increase in figure, development means that it means the dynamics of figure, the change in economic activity is what
the standard of living of people in general has to improve. Okay, yes,
so
okay, but in this case,
however, if you see figures, it has a way of, okay, we have some hope.
Apart from even looking at figures, let's look at the capital expenditure, because in any budget estimate, that is supposed to be the key one that will drive your development. It means that that is the one the government is going to spend to at least improve infrastructural establishments there. And the government of Lagos is going to spend about, if approved, approximately 699 billion naira to an amount of 347 billion naira that will be spent on recurrent expenditure, meaning that this government wants to spend a lot of money on infrastructural development.
Well, I should be happy. And if I should say that the federal government should take a cue from this, I mean, that's without casting aspersion on what the federal government has done. We've seen a lot of improvement in terms of the portion that goes to capital under this administration is improved. We've moved to 30% going to capital expenditure. However, what I've seen for state is, you have seen a case where states typically, on average, would normally give or take between 50 and 60% to capital expenditure. That's what we see across the states. Now, Lagos particularly has that trend. where majority of the budget is spent. Like this budget you're talking about now, about 67% is going to capital capital side of the budget, which is huge if you ask me. So, but it's not also unusual. If you look at the things that the governor has said that he plans to do, open up roads in local government, flyovers here and there, improve healthcare facilities, open up some areas. Then in some areas, you see some of the things that are going on in places like Oshodi, where you can see malls being.
In fact, a lot of projects are ongoing in the state,
across the
almost
state,
everywhere.
and it's said to us that he's committed to ensuring that majority of those products are completed. So the multiplier effect of capital expenditure is more than the multiplier effect. Although people say something that recurrent expenditure don't add anything to the government, it's not entirely true. It's just that the effect that capital expenditure would have on the project, on the economy, is more in terms of multiplier than recurrent expenditure. Because if you put in place say structure, you put in place industry, put in place companies to employ more people to come and produce, you will still need the things that are produced to be purchased by people.
Exactly.
Which is where the recurrent aspect of the economy comes in. Because the recurrent aspect of the economy is where you talk about wages and salaries of workers, and the people that are going to buy those things are the workers.
The recurrent expenditure will translate into liquid cash. Really,
liquid cash. So that's what I'm under there. But another thing I must say, with some caveat though, is the question is, why are state governments usually interested in making the capital aspect of the budget look good? I mean, there is the argument that, you know, if you want to put your hand into the cookie jar of the government, and you want to do it in a way that you want to be sure that even if EFCC is going to go after you, you can explain it is by way of doing more and more projects. So it's different compared to when you just go into the cookie jar and then now just moving money. So, but if you go in and do projects, I do road, I do, so even if they are coming at inflicted cost, as long as you can give, you can bring the invoices, bring the receipts, or whatever it is that you have done. I mean, so I found out that might be one of the reasons that states are usually interested in ensuring that they do a lot of capital projects.
All right. The internally generated revenue projection for the 2018, as is made forth by the governor, is about 450 billion Naira, in addition to, you know, statutory allocation from the Federation account and all of that. But going into the year, what areas do you think, now we just talked about capital projects now, it's going to take a high chunk of that money, but what areas do you think should be concentrated on or should be consolidated upon in Lagos that should be urgent to the government now?
Well, if you ask me, I still, much as I like the budgets put in terms of size, if you look at the budget, you might say 1.05 trillion is huge. But if you compare it to, if you look at it holistically, if you look at it keenly, in terms of what it translates to, in per capita terms. Now, I'm one of the people that believe that Lagos is more than 30 million, even though the figures we see around says around 20 million. Let me even believe the 20 million figures. The 20 million figure. If I take the 20 million and I look for the per capita of the somewhat big budget, what it comes to is about 52,000 Naira per person in a year. So if which
someone would say is meager.
That's not even enough to take care of somebody in a month. So if per person you are getting 52. So I'm just trying to let you know that if you look at if you compare Lagos to other states in Nigeria, yes, is huge. You see states having 100 and something billion and all that. But if you compare Lagos to the people we should be looking at, you talk about New York that has GDP value of about $1.2 trillion. That's more than the GDP figure of Nigeria.
But then you can't compare Lagos to
No, I'm
York.
just saying that even New York, the GDP figure of New York is more than the GDP figure of Nigeria as a nation. So even the GDP figure
You're going far,
of
just go to South Africa.
no, I mean even South Africa. I'm just saying that if you look to applaud you or to give you the stick is a function of what you are comparing yourself to. So if you compare Nigeria, Lagos to other states, you might want to applaud Lagos. That, okay, this is. But if you look at the states that Lagos should be benchmarking itself against, you see that we still have a lot. I mean, we still have a lot to do. That's one. Then two, it remains to be seen how Lagos intends to. Okay, maybe the RGL assumption is somewhat, say, realistic, because in 2016 the IGR of Lagos came to around 302 billion naira. So I'm sure that the one for this year will be more than that. So if you are projecting 400 and something, I think it's refinery coming up and all that. But I think Lagos should start looking at the fiscal side of the budget in terms of ensuring that the fiscal side, they do more of PPPP, that's a private sector partnership. Because the debt stock of Lagos right now, domestic side of it is 2016 is 311 billion naira. Then the foreign part of it is about $1.38 billion. So if you convert that to Naira, and then the total of the two of them should be coming to around 700 billion naira. So I think Lagos, because Lagos is a brand, Lagos has the wherewithal to attract investment. I think that the government should do more engagement with the private sector to ensure that private capital is brought into Lagos.
And indeed, okay, yes, and indeed, the government is, of course, looking at all avenues to make more money, to make the state more viable, and go back to its lost glory. Bringing to mind what the governor said about working seriously towards ensuring 24/7 power supply from next year in the state, if possible. Meaning that Lagos could go back to the state known as the city that never sleeps.
Yeah, I think that's a that's a good step in the right direction. If I mention 300,000 megawatts, if Nigeria as a nation has been struggling,
3,000 megawatts.
3,000, yes. So if Nigeria as a nation has been struggling between, sometimes it comes to
something now, it's been celebrated.
That's when we are doing well. I mean, we've had instances where it even came to as low as 2,000, it's come to as low as 3,000. So if Lagos as a state would do 3,000, you can imagine what that's going to do to, because of all the branches of the banks that we have in Nigeria, Lagos houses 40% of all the branches of the bank. Lagos does between 70 to 80% of all the aviation activity in Nigeria. Lagos does about 75% of the cargo thing that we do. And so Lagos typically does a lot, although we are seeing that in terms of what's it called now? What goes to VAT? You know, Lagos accounts for about 55% of the entire VAT of the federation. Yeah. So I mean, Lagos cannot afford to sleep when it comes to infrastructural development. So okay. I don't think Lagos can do enough of trying to come up with
the right step in the right direction.
I think so, yes.
All right, we have to leave it here now. Shina Olubu, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for
having me.